Alrighty, this one's been featured for quite a few times over the last few weeks because she's been throwing hissy fits, and then we got the new tires for it. But this is my 1963 Oliver 1600 gas, and I bought it over Christmas break, my freshman year of college, and it came from Olson's auction down in Winamac, Indiana, their winter auction. The whole reason this tractor came around was because I just bought that 74H corn picker and I needed a narrow front tractor to mount it on. So I was either looking for an 1800 Series A gas or a 1600 something gas. So 1600, 1650, 1655, I really didn't care. Just wanted a gas narrow front. And the reason I wanted a gas was I figured if I bought a gas tractor, I wouldn't feel bad about hanging a corn picker on it and leaving it on there because it's a gas tractor. So this thing was in the Olson auction sale bill, and I have to drive almost basically right past it on the way home from school anyway, and it worked out great that the auction was the Saturday after exam week, and I had an exam on Friday, so I just stayed down there Friday night, drove up to Winamac that Saturday, and then after the auction drove the rest of the way home. But we went down there and looked there. Went down there, initially couldn't find it because they had it wedged in behind a disc. And when I did actually manage to find it, the best way to describe it was it looked like a pile. There was only a couple bolts holding all the side tin on, and it was kind of flopping around loose, and the muffler on it was bent, and this fender was sagging real bad, and it obviously you saw the tires that were on it. They looked even worse when I first bought it, and it needless to say didn't look real promising. But you can't go down there and not try it, so I hopped up on the seat, hit the key, and I don't think it rolled over 2 times and sat there and fired right up. Sat there idling fine, carried good oil pressure. Mechanically, other than the fact that when it was down there, the 2-speed was out of it, and it only had low range, because when your 2-speed goes out, it automatically defaults to low range because it doesn't need a clutch pack to go straight through the over-under or the hydropower. So other than the fact that it was slower than snot, the engine in it seemed pretty mechanically sound. 3-point worked, remotes worked. So I figured, what the heck, I'll stay here and bid on it. And time finally came to, and it came up on the block, and there's only me and one other guy bidding on it, and I think I jumped in at $1,000, and we ran it up to what I thought was $2,300, because that's what when I put the last bid in, I could have swore that's what the auctioneer said was $2,300, and I got it, and I went into the office to pay for it, and the lady or the secretary working there said, okay, it'll be $2,100. So either they wrote it down wrong or I heard it wrong. So instead of 23, I got it for $2,100. And we I obviously didn't have a trailer down there for it since I was driving up from school. So came back, and I initially was going to just let it stay down there overnight and go back and load it up. Well, I got home and I was too excited, so me and a buddy hooked my dad's trailer up and went down there, and we loaded it up in the dark and got it back up here that night. And first thing we did was pulled it in the garage, and I think at that point it must have been about 9 o'clock at night we started working on it, and I think we tinkered with it till almost midnight. Fixed the muffler so it was on there good. Got all the bolts put back in the tin so that it was hanging on there like it should. Just a couple odds and ends things, clean the spark plugs, clean the points, all that stuff to make it run a little better. And it ran really good after all that. But the hydropower was out, so I knew I was going to have to pull it apart. And so I started ordering parts for it, and I used it around the house here to do a couple things just to run it a little while and kind of get a feel for what isms it might have. But obviously didn't go very far with it because it only do about a whole whopping 7 miles an hour down the road. So got all the parts here for it. Think it was the end of the first week of break. Everything got here, started tearing into it, got the motor pulled out of it. Which I kind of did a video of most of that way back when I first started doing YouTube, so I won't get into all the mechanical stuff of it. But basically, found out that the hydropower in the first series of double aughts can't be rebuilt because they put soft, actually it didn't even have valve seats in it. The valve seats were machined into the side plate, and they were known for basically disappearing. And basically that's why this one didn't work, is there was no poppet valve seat in there anymore, so it wouldn't build pressure to shift the clutch pack. So after we found that out, it worked out good because there's a guy out at Maybaugh that had just pulled the hydropower out of a 1650 that had been rebuilt because he upgraded a 1650 to a 3-speed. So he sold me that complete hydropower that had just been rebuilt for $600, and I couldn't have rebuilt the old one that was in it because basically what you have to do is pull all the guts out of it and put a second series set of guts and a side cover on it, and that would have cost upwards of 12, if not more, to rebuild the one that was in it. So that's the only thing I regret about this, is when I did that, I should have sprung for a 3-speed instead of a 2-speed just because it would have been more handy, but such is life. So it's got that hydropower in it. We had to end up rebuilding the motor because the pistons and sleeves were shot, rings were shot. It had a bent push rod in it, so we had to put a new push rod in it. The head on it had been redone at some point. It had a bunch of new valves and valve seats in it. So basically all I had to do with that was lap the valves, and we put new umbrella seals on it, and so the head was already done. Starter and generator were rebuilt. Rebuilt the ignition system in it, and then got it all ready to go that spring because I wanted to use a little bit before I hung that picker on there, and basically proceeded to fall in love with it because it's the perfect, it's like the handiest size tractor ever. It's big enough that you can actually go out and do stuff with it, but it's still nimble. And at that point, still had a narrow front on it, so it was really nimble. So, ended up never hanging a corn picker on it. And I bet that first year, it got more hours on it than my 1955 because I disced with it, I planted with it. It did a bunch of runaround stuff. I spread fertilizer with it. I did some moldboard plowing with it. So I used the dog crap out of it that first year I had it. And then the first and second year, it was my main planting tractor. And basically it did most of the light work until the 1800s showed up, and then that kind of took over because it's a diesel and it's a little easier on fuel. But that's when we decided that we were going to put the loader on this one. So we decided to put a narrow front on, or a wide front on it, because narrow front loader tractors are just really sketchy and I don't like them. So I'll never put a loader on a narrow front tractor. So Dad found this front axle on eBay over in Bad Axe, Michigan. A guy had parted out of 1550. So he watched it, and for some reason, even nobody, I don't know if it was just because of where it was at, or the time of year, or what, or if nobody just noticed it, but he only had to give $150 for that front axle, and it was a complete hubs, everything. Steering box, or the guy even left the steering box on it. So got that, rebuilt the axle, got all new bushings in it, new bearings in it, new seals on the hubs, slapped that under there. So basically the whole reason I bought the tractor is for the narrow front. Now it's no longer a narrow front. So we put that on there earlier this summer, and then obviously everybody saw the video of putting the new rear tires on it. So, and being a 63, this makes it a Series 1. And I really like the 4 digits. I think they're good looking tractors. They're easy to work on. But if you're going to get into collecting Olivers and you want a 4 digit, don't start off with a double aught unless you, 1, know what you're doing, or 2, have a good source of parts and a good source of knowledge as to what changed on them, because things like that hydropower, since this was basically a top-down brand new design for Oliver, they were changing a lot of things on the double aughts really fast, and that's why there's an A, B, C on the 1800s and 1900s, and on the 1600s there's a Series 1 and a Series 2. So I'm not trying to shy anybody away from a double aught, but until you've learned what to look for, save these for later. Because there was a lot of things that we learned, especially between this and the 1800, there's a lot of things we found that they changed in these, and you have to know who to talk to and what to look for when you're rebuilding them, to know what you should update, what doesn't need to be updated, what has to be updated, anything like that. So, but as soon as Mother Nature cooperates, we're hopefully going to go get the barn rearranged and get the loader out, and hopefully before spring it'll have a loader hanging on it. But again, waiting on Mother Nature for that to happen. So, but that's basically the short story of the 1600. If you want more, you can go back and look at the other 2 videos I did a rebuild next. I think I'd told a longer story there, but it's been so long since I watched them I couldn't tell you. So anyway, I guess that does it for this one, and we will catch you guys on the next one.